think the Obama administration came up with like certain points, right? There were like 16 or 17 points where USCIS released, which like, how can they better the USCIS streamline their work process, right? That was something that
I remember. Yeah.
right. So it was sort of like they had certain, points about how can we, streamline our process. And one of them was obviously like digitalization of forms, blah, 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 and all these things. But then I don't remember the exact one, but it specifically mentioned, issuing of green cards which were authorized by Congress,
Yeah.
but not issued by USCIS. So essentially they're talking about wasted green cards,
Wastage,
right?
yes.
And it had caught a lot of steam. I was
Yes.
really hopeful that it would be implemented at that time, but eventually, obviously, it didn't happen. I think I-140 EAD sort of took over, which again didn't happen too. But then recapture was very, very close to happening at that
Yeah.
point. We know now from people who were at the administration.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was close, but somehow it didn't happen. They thought that it may, it was a slippery slope. I'm glad that this committee has thought about it. If they can get it done, it would be really fantastic.
If you were born in India and are living in United States of America and are a high-skilled immigrant, chances are you've heard of the green card backlog. Chances also are that you have been to your representative and told them your sob story, told them all the difficulties that you face. You've taken your kids with you. You've been with your spouse as a family, you've spoken about it with your neighbors, but in the last 30 years, nothing has changed. So why are you even expecting something would change in United States of America for you? My name is Neha Mahajan, and along with me is Anirban Das. He and I, we've founded Skilled Immigrants in America. Anirban, thank you so much for joining me today. We've been hearing about I-140 EAD. I-140 EAD, what does it mean? And recapturing of green card. What is recapturing of green card? Congress hasn't been able to pass any bills. So this recapturing of green cards and giving away I-140 EAD, is this going to solve all your troubles, all your immigration troubles in the United States of America? We're going to find out in this discussion. I'm Neha Mahajan, and you're watching the American Alien Podcast. I see people saying, bring the I-140 EAD, recapture wasted green cards, right? How much is the truth to I-140 EAD? We'll get to recapturing of green card in a little bit, but what is the truth to I-140 EAD? I don't think there's an I-140 EAD. There's a 485 EAD.
Right. So I think the concept sort of grew from the 2015 Obama executive order, right? I mean, I think that's where I think the idea sort of grew, where first when it came out, it was sort of mentioned that, providing work authorizations to those with approved immigrant petitions, right? I mean, which immigrant petition, which means the I-140. So
Yeah.
Immediately the idea was, okay, anybody who has an approved I-140 will be given an EAD AP, and, you kind of like continue your life. So which means you don't have to be on the H-1B, and spouses, get their EADs, which H4s have, but it just basically means you can get out of your visa. You basically avail to all the benefits of adjustment of status.
Yeah.
So we obviously know that eventually didn't happen, right? And USCIS came up with this lengthy rulemaking, which talked about like compelling circumstances, 1 year EAD, and you have to again prove. Here's the reason why it didn't happen. So I-140 EAD is not a status. I mean, I think every time we talk about this, I think that it was born out of the 2015 executive order, and everybody is still very mad at Obama for not getting it done. We know that, but I think people need to understand that having an approved I-140 is not a status. It's basically just another step in your green card process, right?
You're in the line.
Right. So yeah. So it's right. So it's the three steps that you have. If you are not an NIW, or if you're not an EB1, essentially, then you have to get your perm approved, which is your first step. Then you have to get your I-140 approved. Obviously, if your priority date is current, the I-140 and the 485 can be filed concurrently, right?
Yeah.
But I-140 approved, which and then essentially you get your 485, and you have to get your adjustment of status. So the I-140 approved is not a status, because if you think of it, like even when you get your I-140 approved, you're still maintaining your H-1B status, right? You're
Yeah.
still maintaining the H-4 status. Essentially, the visa class that you were maintaining before, you are maintaining it continuously. That's the reason. The reason why you have to do this is because I-140 approved I-140 is not a status. It doesn't provide you anything. So
Exactly.
it just basically allows you to extend your H-1B and H-4s every 3 years, right?
Infinitely if you're born in India.
Infinitely, obviously, for Indians,
Yes.
because priority days becoming current is really something. So,
Yes.
so that's essentially what your approved I-140 gives you. Your approved I-140 allows you to extend your H-1B, your H-4s, and your dependent H-4s, their visas for every 3 years
Yeah.
till they are in a position to file adjustment of status. And the reason this is the INA specifically states that the adjustment of status can only be filed when an immigrant visa is immediately available, right?
Exactly.
That's the reason why the priority date is so important. So by saying that, give us EAD-AP based on approved I-140, the problem is here, which people are not realizing, is that if let's say you're given EAD-AP, based on your approved I-140, what is your status in the US?
Exactly. You still have to maintain your H-1B.
Just like when you have your approved I-140 right now, you
Exactly.
still have to maintain your H-1B, you still have to maintain your H-4. So when you have an approved I-140, USCIS just cannot give you an EAD-AP because they can only give it to you once you file adjustment of status, and the
Yes.
adjustment of status can only be filed when an immigrant visa is immediately available. Now, there is a way USCIS could always do it if there was. I don't want to blame it on USCIS because it's the agency; they're just basically following rules. But I would say any administration that is, wanting to do something good for the skilled immigrant community.
Yeah.
What they can do is because this filing date concept started from 2015, and that happened because of the whole visa bulletin fiasco, right?
Yes.
I think in 2000. It
was 2015.
Right.
Yes.
So the whole visa bulletin fiasco thing happened. Yeah. And where they advance the dates, many people get their medicals done and everything, and then they retrograde the date before the bulletin was published, right? Like a week before or something.
Yeah.
So like the bulletin was supposed to be active, and I think they basically anyway. So because the filing date concept is the idea is that you advance the filing date, you allow people to file adjustment of status. USCIS gets an idea as to how many people are in the inventory. That's how they can move the final action dates and issue green cards, and essentially they minimize wastage, right? That's the gist of it.
Right.
So what USCIS can actually do, and if the administration really wanted to get this done, they could do it. Is like you just move the dates. Like there is nothing in the INA that stops you from moving the filing dates, right?
Yeah.
So just move the dates, allow people to file adjustment of status, and if they're allowed to file adjustment of status, that's a big gain, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you get EAD, you get AP, you can
change jobs. You're no longer just an H-1B holder. You have a status outside of H-1B holder. Obviously, you have to maintain both of them, but you can go in and out of the country. Yeah. You still have to have stamping. That's still going to be
right. If you want to maintain your H-1B, then you need to go.
Which is
which is up to you. That's the whole point.
No, right? But it is also advisable because if you use EAD-AP to enter, if you use your AP to enter into United States of America, then essentially, to your point, what is the status you were on?
Yeah, then you're losing your H-1B.
You're losing out on your status, right? Yeah, but it definitely helps. The CSPA ruling that came in a few months ago, so it definitely helps kids from aging out, right? It protects them. It protects spouses who are in this limbo of renewing their, work authorization, which is taking forever, no matter the lawsuit, no matter what the memos have been. But I feel like USCIS can really just do this, as per your suggestion, do this by just issuing an internal memo. That's all that is needed. They don't need to go to Congress. They don't need any executive orders for this. This is as simple as a departmental memo, and they can use the dates, because it's all a projection anyways. Right?
Yeah. I mean, because that's the whole point. Like, they are not using filing dates to issue green cards. Right?
Exactly.
They're using the final action date. So just move the filing dates. Just allow people to file adjustment of status so that at least they can get out of this, this entire visa hassles or whatever you have. And I know, and the big thing, like you mentioned, the kids being protected.
Yes.
Because at least, thankfully, earlier they were using the final action dates,
Yes.
and I remember we submitted a memo, a
recommendation,
right?
Yes,
where we recommended that just use the filing dates for
Yes.
the CSPN, and we are very thankful that USCIS at least started
Yes.
doing that. So that's another thing. I mean, if they just advance the filing dates, people are allowed to file adjustment of status, many kids' age will be protected, right? So
Exactly.
USCIS literally has nothing to lose here, and the immigrant community has a lot to
And the talent pool that wants to remain in America remains in America. It's good for U.S. economy. It's they don't have to look for ways of going to Canada or other countries so that they can stay together as a family. So the families stay together is good. Like I said, good for U.S. economy. I was looking at some numbers, and these are numbers from 2019 or 2018. I'm pretty sure those numbers have changed now. That H-1Bs, in a fiscal year, H-1B visa holders contribute to over $54 billion into U.S. economy, just H-1B visa holders. Just think about it. And those numbers have definitely increased, over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, there's so much that H-1B visa holders give into the U.S. economy, and it's a shame that USCIS doesn't see value in making life easier for them. So I think this is a great suggestion. If adjustment of status, the 485 adjustment of status can be given on the basis of filing dates. So you're still, in a limbo, but in a better limbo than being in an infinite loop of being on just H-1B and not able to change jobs and, not able to protect your child and the spouse's work authorization and all of the, situations that come with being just on an H-1B. All right. So thanks for explaining that. Another recommendation that I see has caught up like fire on social media is recapturing of green cards. We've been talking about it. We've also had recommended this. So back from 1992 to I think 2000. I don't remember the date exactly. 92. Yeah.
2021, 2022.
Right. So 1992 onwards, there have been over 230,000 green cards that have been wasted by USCIS for various reasons. And you really don't even have to go through Congress. It's very simple for USCIS to really just be accountable for that wastage and issue green cards towards this number. The bigger question is, how is this even going to happen? How can USCIS get its act together to make this a possibility? And everyone, what do you think?
So this was advised by the advisory committee,
Yes.
Right? So obviously it's a fantastic advice. I mean, obviously we have been recommending this for a while.
Yes.
We've been saying this for a while, that this is something that we think can be done without Congress passing a bill. And because this is essentially, and I think this is where I think a lot of confusion is, where people is like, well, recapture is an increase of green cards, right? The opponents will always say this, right? It's an increase of green cards.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one thing that you have to, like, if you're on social media and if you're like countering somebody on this is the one point that you should use. It's like the recapture is not an increase of green cards. That's not. These are green cards that were already authorized by Congress to be used in the employment-based category, but USCIS never issued them.
Yes.
Early in the 1992s, there were like little demand for it, and obviously after that they have wasted green cards. As just like 2 years ago, they wasted 80,000 green cards.
Yes.
Right? Based on during the COVID.
This was even after the lawsuit.
Even after the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Right? So I know that in the Ombudsman report, I think originally came out, and that's where the 230,000 number was there. Originally, I think the number was actually close to 300,000, but when I did some calculations, obviously there's some of the years there were not enough demand for for the green cards for the employment-based category. Imagine that.
I know, right? Back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s, before the Y2K.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough to like ask for those green cards. Anyway, 230,000 is a pretty big number, right?
Yes.
I mean, it is more than a year's quota, or like more than 1.5 years quota, right? So if that's so, I think what needs to happen right now is, I don't know what happens after the advisory panel, what they recommended. I mean, we know they recommended this. Where is it going? Like, if somebody needs to draft an executive order, I think
Right.
it has to be somebody from USCIS or whoever
Right.
does it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously the administration has to push for this, right? I mean, just like
Yeah.
the
So I think the way the advisory committee that's working on this, the API, advisory committee, is that this will be presented as a suggestion in our committee meeting, and then upon approval from DHS, it'll be presented to president's desk, and if president signs off on it, is when it gets implemented, which we don't know when that's going to happen, because multiple memos have been issued to USCIS in the recent past, but none of them seem to be working. And I also think the bigger question here is the 7% per country cap. So out of the 230,000, assumed visas that we are talking about that have been wasted, how is that going to trickle down under various categories? Is all of that going to come to EB1, EB2, EB3 categories, or is it going to be, we've seen the August visa bulletin. We know where the dates are right now. None of the, countries are current, except for an EB1 category. So, how is this going to work? Do you have any insights into it?
Right. So there are two ways, obviously, that can happen. So we know that when green cards came in from the family-based category, right?
Yeah.
That has to follow the 7% country cap. So that essentially
goes. That's a spillover that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way it was done is because Congress intended for green cards not to be wasted. So if they're not utilized in the family-based category, they can be used in the employment category the next year. That's the reason why ED has been getting those extra green cards over the past few years, right? Because
exactly.
Consulates were closed and all.
Yep.
So we saw what happened, like when all these extra green cards came, they obviously followed the 7% country cap. Obviously, the rest of the world gobbled up a lot more. It was expected that India would probably get a lot more of the share, but eventually, obviously, after COVID, ROW applications went up, and the spillover, horizontal spillover wasn't that much. Let's put it that way. So there are two ways this can happen. But we know that when the family-based green cards flow into the employment-based, it has to follow the 7% country cap.
Right.
Here, we know that these are already employment-based green cards, right? So this is not something that is coming from the other category. So when it comes, I would assume that even though these are additional green cards, in the employment-based category, I will assume that USCIS will probably follow the same.
I would also err on the side of caution. They might just use a 7% per country cap here as well.
Right. Technically, the additional green cards, as you know, in the same category should flow into the applicant with the oldest priority date.
Yeah.
That's what should happen.
Yeah.
But USCIS will probably not end up doing it. They'll probably consider it as just an additional bulk of green cards, and they'll probably follow the same. But I mean, I don't want to dampen anybody's expectations. 230,000 green cards are a lot. If they fall into the EB category, that would be really, really something good. I mean, we know probably ROW is not going to use all that much. So obviously there will be some horizontal spillover. Any extra number of green cards in the EB category would be a boost. So
super helpful.
I'm not going to obviously dampen people's spirits and say, how is this going to happen, right? And I think that one of the suggestion was that they would do it over a course of a few years, right? So I would say they would probably use 30,000, 40,000. If it's not 230,000, they'll probably use around 30,000 a year, do it over the course of 4, 5, 6 years, maybe whatever it takes. Till they come up with it. We know they can issue around 200,000 green cards a year. Right? They did it last year.
Exactly.
At least they claim they did it last year. So we know they can probably process around 200,000. So let's say if they process around 30,000, 40,000 extra, they'll probably do it over the next 6 years.
Right.
So let's say for the next 6 years, then the category that the quota would be 170,000, 75,000, 80,000, whatever they can process, and they do it. That's why, because it's because they would do it over the course of many years. I'm still I'm still thinking they were going to use the 7% country cap.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, any number of green cards additional that's coming to the quota is good.
That's going to be helpful, with the way USCIS has been and Department of State have been issuing visa numbers and, literally playing dead bug and saying that
it would be interesting to know if the 230,000 has the 80,000 that they wasted like a couple of years ago. Because I know the Ombudsman report originally, which was released like in 2015 or 2016, that number was at 230,000.
Right.
So they wasted like 80,000 like 2 years ago, right? Oh, just.
So this should be a higher number than just 230,000.
If you are recapturing wasted green cards, green cards wasted by you, USCIS, so then you should just recapture the 80,000 that you wasted in the fiscal year 2020.
See, the worst part is, the USCIS does not come under congressional purview, right? So there's no boss of it, so as to say, who can,
because they're run by immigrant fees.
There you go. You and I, our money that we pay into the forms that we fill and all the other fees that we pay is what runs USCIS. So there's no accountability. There's no congressional accountability. There can be no inquiry that can be set up. So USCIS is like a free bird. They can continue to do whatever they want to continue to do. But I'm so glad that at least, recapturing of green card is on the table for discussion, at least to at least do something. They're trying to look for ways to make this situation slightly better. Will they be actually able to do it? I don't know.
Right. I mean, at least they acknowledge the fact that there is a big backlog.
Yes.
And any infusion of additional green cards would be helpful. And they know that there has been a wastage of green cards before, and they're talking about it. Okay, these green cards were wasted before in EB category. Let's put it back in the pool so that there's some relief. So I'm grateful that at least this discussion is going on. I remember back in 2015 when this entire Obama immigration executive order thing was going on. I think, if I remember, it was point 14 or point 15, which specifically mentioned recapture of green cards.
Oh, really?
Yes. The executive order, I think the Obama administration came up with like certain points, right? There were like 16 or 17 points where USCIS released, which like, how can they better the USCIS streamline their work process, right? That was something that
I remember,
Right. So it was sort of like they had certain points about how can we streamline our process, and one of them was obviously like digitalization of forms, blah blah blah, and all these things. But then I don't remember the exact one, but it specifically mentioned issuing of green cards which were authorized by Congress, but not issued by USCIS. So essentially they're talking about wasted green cards.
Wasted, right? Yes.
And it had caught a lot of steam. I was really hopeful that it would be implemented at that time, but eventually, obviously, it didn't happen. I think I-140 EAD sort of took over, which again didn't happen too. But then recapture was very, very close to happening at that point. We know now from people who were at the administration.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was close, but somehow it didn't happen. They thought that it may, it was a slippery slope. I'm glad that this committee has thought about it. If they can get it done, it would be really fantastic. But here is a word of caution, though. If it's done, it's by an executive order, right? If it's done by the Biden administration, it would be an executive order.
Yes.
Just like we got I-140 EAD, and remember what happened when the next administration came. The first thing that was about to go away was I-140 EAD, right?
That's true.
So it's a word of caution. Even if this happens, if there's change in administration, the next president can just take it away like this. So that's the thing. But that only comes after if it's actually done. We don't know if it's going to happen yet, but at least
I hope that doesn't happen. I hope if it does go through executive action, it stays and people are able to adjust their status and get the green card. Man, I mean, it's just and come to the other side. Really, it is very hard. It is very hard to.
We know we have first-hand experience, and
yes,
we know exactly what people are going through, right? So obviously,
All right, Anirban, I really, really appreciate you taking our time today and discussing all of this with me. If you have a topic that you would like for us to discuss, send me an email, theamericanalien1@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. You really don't even have to watch us. Just, be doing what you have to do, put this on and, let this run in the background, and you'll probably learn something about immigration. We certainly have learned all of this through our years of firsthand experience in terms of being immigrants, and also, through our work of advocacy that we've done over the years as skilled immigrants in America. So I will see you next time, and we will discuss another topic. And I really hope that this green card backlog really, really, just goes away somehow. I wish if I had a magic wand, I would do that. But until next time, let's stay hopeful. Thank you.